My name is Melissa Carter, and for the longest time, I thought I knew exactly who I was. A wife, a mother, and someone who worked hard to keep her household steady. But nothing could have prepared me for the way my life would shift when my teenage son, Ethan, asked me to model for his high school art project. What began as a simple favor spiraled into a journey of rediscovery, family bonding, and truths that would change everything for us. It all began on a rainy Thursday afternoon in our small town of Oakwood, a place where neighbors waved when they passed, and families gathered on Friday nights for football games. Ethan was a senior in high school, quiet but brilliant. He had inherited his father's sharp jawline but had my tendency to overthink everything. He was an artist through and through, and sometimes I worried about how much of his heart he poured into his sketches, paintings, and sculptures. That day, as I was folding laundry in the living room, Ethan walked in carrying a portfolio case. His expression was hesitant, like he was rehearsing something important in his head. "Mom," he started, his voice softer than usual. "Can I ask you something a little weird?" I laughed and told him I'd heard it all before. After all, raising a teenager meant nothing surprised me anymore. But what he asked next did surprise me. For my final art project, I need a model. Someone who can pose for me while I sketch. And I was wondering if you'd be willing to do it. At first, I blinked at him, unsure if I'd heard right. He wanted me, his mom, to model? I thought surely he'd rather ask a friend, a classmate, maybe even his dad. But me? He must have noticed the confusion on my face because he rushed to explain. "I need someone I trust," he said quickly. "The project isn't just about drawing a person, it's about capturing something deeper. And honestly, Mom, you're the person who inspires me the most." I can't explain the way those words hit me. For months, maybe years, I had felt invisible in my own home. My husband, Mark, was always working late, and Ethan spent most of his time in his room. I was just there, cooking, cleaning, working part-time at the local library, keeping everything together. Hearing my son say I inspired him nearly brought tears to my eyes. So of course, I agreed. That weekend, we set up in his room, which was more like a studio than a bedroom. Sketches lined the walls, canvases leaned against the desk, and jars of brushes sat on the shelves. He asked me to sit by the window in the old wooden chair that used to belong to his grandfather. The sunlight spilled through the glass, illuminating dust particles in the air, giving everything a soft, golden glow. "Just sit however you're comfortable," Ethan said, pencil in hand. "Don't think about it too much." And so I did. At first, it felt awkward, like I was intruding in his creative world. But as he began to draw, I relaxed. I watched him, focused and quiet, his hand moving with precision across the paper. His brows furrowed, lips pursed, the way he tilted his head as though he was seeing something invisible and trying to make it real. Minutes turned into hours. We hardly spoke, but it didn't feel uncomfortable. It felt grounding, like a kind of bond we hadn't shared in years. When he finally set the pencil down, he showed me the sketch. And that's when I realized this wasn't going to be just another project. He hadn't drawn me as just Mom. He hadn't captured the tired woman who folded laundry and cooked dinner. Instead, he'd drawn me with a strength I didn't know I had, with a softness I thought I'd lost, with a dignity that had been buried under years of routine. I saw myself through his eyes, and it was breathtaking. "Ethan, is this really how you see me?" I whispered, my throat tight. "Of course," he said simply. "You're my mom. You've always been the strongest person I know." That night, after Ethan went to bed, I sat alone in the kitchen staring at that sketch. I realized how much I'd forgotten about myself, my dreams, my passions, my worth. And I also realized how much I had underestimated my son. The days that followed became a routine of modeling and sketching. Sometimes I posed while reading a book, sometimes while sipping coffee, sometimes just staring out the window. Each sketch was different, and each revealed something new about me. It was as if Ethan was holding up a mirror I hadn't dared to look into in years. But the truth that changed everything wasn't just about me, it was about him, too. One evening, after another long session, I noticed Ethan seemed distant. He kept erasing the same line over and over, frustration etched on his face. "What's wrong, honey?" I asked. He hesitated, then sighed. "It's not the drawing. It's me. I don't think I can do this. I don't think I'm good enough for art school." My heart clenched. I knew he'd been applying to colleges, but I didn't realize how much doubt he was carrying. "Ethan," I said firmly, "look at what you've created. Do you know how powerful it is to make someone see themselves differently? That's not just talent, that's a gift. And gifts like that don't just disappear. You're more than good enough." He looked at me, eyes glassy, and in that moment, I realized what this project truly meant. It wasn't just about him capturing me on paper, it was about him finding the courage to see himself as an artist. And maybe, just maybe, about me finding the courage to see myself as more than just a background character in my own life. When the day of his final presentation came, I sat in the audience of the high school auditorium, heart pounding. Ethan stood on stage with his sketches displayed behind him, explaining his process, his inspiration, and his subject, me. He spoke with confidence I hadn't heard in years, and when he revealed the final piece, a full portrait that captured not just my face but my spirit, I could hear the audience gasp. I cried that night, not just from pride, but from gratitude. Because in agreeing to model for my son's art project, I had stumbled into something far greater, the truth that we had both been searching for. That art has the power to heal, to connect, to reveal truths we don't even realize we're carrying. And the biggest truth of all? That sometimes, the person you think you're helping is the one who ends up saving you.